The Central Club.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Gower. I'm here basically because I've been in the situation of using cocaine and alcohol, been suicidal, tried to take my life twice, didn't work, worked through addiction, stopped using, and now I coach people all around the world, one-to-one, to try and do my bit against the cocaine industry. That is why I'm here, and I'll just leave it at that for now.
Hi, I'm Gregor. I tried to take my own life about 7 years ago after a bender and really didn't put two and two together until last week when Maggie contacted me, and I kind of thought these just thoughts and feelings came from nowhere, but I think it's because of how common alcohol and drug use is. It's kind of like, oh, it wouldn't have been that. Everyone else does that. I think it probably was. And just really compelling kind of feelings of wanting to give up and take my life. And if it wasn't for my brother, actually, who saved my life, probably wouldn't be here talking now. And yeah, I'm kind of on some kind of a journey to try and sort this out. And I'm really glad I can be here to talk, actually, because I think I'm aware that my experience is kind of rare. A lot of people that experience what I've experienced don't get to talk about it. And I think I feel almost responsible to do that, to talk about it, because there are other people that could go through what I've gone through. And I think any information is helpful. I'll just leave that, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jay. Apologies if I just stopped talking. A little bit nervous, but hopefully should be fine. So I have had quite a few times where on the come down it's just been that dreadful. Just the thoughts of ending my life just would have eased the pain that I was going through on the come down. There's been a couple of times where I just had a knife just like right close to my neck pressed in. The closer to my neck it was, the more comfortable I was just knowing that it just could all end. Luckily that never happened, but I have gone through all that and I have found awareness behind the situation, how I was, why it happened, and just coming across Maggie a couple of weeks ago and just having this opportunity to share my story that hopefully could, whether it's 0.1% increase the chance of someone not doing something, it doesn't matter, just potentially helping at least one person, just made it worthwhile, just being open enough to share. And there's just a lot of gratitude from me as well for the other people on the panel, for yourself, for everyone, just doing this amazing thing that's going to help people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. It must feel, much better, much easier that you guys have been in a similar situation, same as the mothers. I want to jump straight in. Like I said, we're time constricted here. So if we can go one by one, when did you start using cocaine and alcohol? And do you believe that they both come hand in hand?
Yeah, so when I got my friendship with cocaine, it was at my mum's wake. Someone said to me, have a line of this white powder, it'll pick you up a bit. To which I said, all right then. I pretty much straight away thought that was what I was looking for. Felt pretty lost. I just lost a few members of my family that died suddenly, not drug related. And really, I was just going through life, didn't really know what my focus was. Didn't know what my ambitions were, didn't have any. And then Coke come along. and that was what I needed. That is what I felt. Alcohol, I would generally use when the gear run out. So neat spirits, generally to try and sleep, because you lay there looking at the ceiling through your eyelids, can't sleep. Drinking after I'd used for a period of time. I mean, I used gear for many years. Generally, the first sip of beer, Charlie Angel would come out. The link between a sip or even looking at a glass of beer on a hot day and the little bit of water running down the side would trigger. Very difficult to get away from that. So there is a definite link, and the suicidal thoughts and all of that comes with it. I've done a lot of work into my soul, and I know that there is a link. There is a sure link between wanting to end it and cocaine and alcohol. Cheers.
I think from a young age, I've always been fascinated with drugs. Always just wanted to know. I think I was always going to say yes if someone offered me drugs. I had to know. It's not something you can explain to someone. You can't say this is how it makes you feel, because feelings are really personal. And I was always fascinated with consciousness and what is the reality that I'm looking at. And if something could change that, it's really, really interesting. And obviously alcohol is a drug and stuff, so I was kind of interested in being drunk and how that felt. And but I hated it. I hated being drunk. It was a rubbish drug. I'd end up crying and being all sad at the end of the night. It was rubbish. But that's what you do. We live in England. There's pubs everywhere. So if I wanted to be part of the social circle and be able to drink, I'd have to not get drunk. And how do you do that? And trying cocaine felt great. I was like, this is a solution. Now I can stay in the social circle all night, be the last one, and not miss out on anything. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed most of it, but just alcohol on its own was rubbish, and cocaine on its own is rubbish as well. If I do cocaine on its own, it's really like agitating, confused, don't know what I want to do. I've got all this energy, but I can't focus on one thing. Then alcohol and cocaine together seems like a more pleasurable experience. And yeah, I was just using it recreationally, I suppose, or just for fun. Like maybe there were times when I was having a shit time and I go, oh, I know it'll make me feel good. So maybe I was using it a bit irresponsibly at times. But I don't think it was until the event of 7 years ago, I didn't feel at risk. I didn't feel like, I think I kind of loved myself a bit too much. Didn't think I'd ever kill myself. I was like, fucking hell, I can't not be alive. But I think that's why it was so confusing when I had those thoughts on that day. Where did this come from? You know? And I didn't really put two and two together, this thing that I've been enjoying and the feelings that I feel now, that they could be linked. But I think now they're pretty convinced now, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
For me, I started drinking probably not a lot, but when I was probably 15, 16, end of high school, college era. And I didn't start drinking more heavily until uni. It was pretty much multiple times per week. I never actually tried cocaine until a year or two after university. I didn't really want to try it, but I didn't know much about it. And it was just the lack of education around it and just knowing that everyone was doing it just kind of, it's quite alluring, if that's the right word to use. I just wanted to try it, and I didn't know it exactly at the time, and I wasn't diagnosed, but I had anxiety, depression, so I knew I had them as a background, and there will be some people that don't consciously know that is that much of an effect, but for me it was, and for some people it is. But I was just looking to kind of escape that feeling and just live in for the weekend. But that sort of escape and the desire just to live to the weekend grew the more and more I did cocaine. So when I did it, it just felt incredible. The anxiety just went. But then you pay for it. It's like being in debt. Just the next day, you just pay for it tenfold in just how awful it is. And I don't think I had cocaine by itself. But once I started having that every now and then, again, it was more recreationally. When I did drink, drinking seemed boring. So when I had 1 or 2 pints, I'd just kind of crave that sort of, well, just having some coke. And then it's all I wanted to, not all I wanted to do, but it was a big factor of just my life, just wanting to live for the weekend, just to have that. So I'm not sure if there's another part to that question.
Yeah, no, it's just as it was, really. What you said, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think what you're all saying is how it is always used recreational, and you clearly don't think it's a problem. You're doing it by choice, and it's out there. And I think we all know how easy accessible alcohol is. It's in every shop corner. It's in every pub round the corner, should I say. How easy accessible is cocaine for you?
It's everywhere. It's easier than ordering a takeaway. Frankly, the work that you have to do to get away from addiction, part of it is to realise and understand that the gear is always going to be there. It's what you do to manage that. That's never going to change. Really, every time you walk into an establishment, people will be using gear. People behind the bar will be using gear. It's frankly probably closer to you than a rat. I don't know. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, so it's far too easy to get it. The cocaine that is out there now, speaking of rats, it's mucked about with. It's not pure cocaine. People might say it is, but it's not. You might get 0.1, 0.2 in a gram of gear. It's all the other shite that they bash it with. So again, there's studies that have shown that they're bashing it with rat poison, which is stunting the way that you speak or stopping you from speaking. Anything that they can mix with gear, they will do it. So frankly, you never know what you're sniffing, even though you think it's termed cocaine. It's generally not. But yeah, so it's far too accessible. It's always going to be easier to get than most things. It's how you deal with it. As soon as you understand and work the mindset that the gear is always going to be there, and you have to work out how to stay away from it, stay safe, and keep others safe.
Yeah, I think every city has a 24-hour line somewhere. It's not hard to find. Go into any pub and just look for the person that looks the most confident. He's probably on it. And yeah, literally, I live in Brighton, and you can call any time of the day, and it's 10 minutes away. 10 minutes. Can't get anything in 10 minutes. Nothing. It'll take you longer to walk to the shop to get some food and come back. 10 minutes, it'll be at your door. And yeah, I think it's more because of the demand. There's so many people that want it, and they wouldn't be there selling it for 24 hours of the day unless it was worth it for them. So demand is a huge thing. No one's trying to force it on anyone. People want it. That's why, it sells itself. Yeah, that's it yeah.
For me, it's slightly different. So I'm quite oblivious to a lot of things, especially when I was at uni. All I did was drink. I did smoke a bit of weed every now and then, but that was never really an issue. But I didn't know that many people were using at uni, or even when I left uni, when I was going out on nights out. I genuinely just didn't think that many people were doing other things apart from alcohol. So I think it's interesting to have this different sort of mentality, because that kind of shows just how subtle the whole thing is. Like you just don't know what's going on, even though when I found out you do know what's going on, and a lot of people do. It's just not talked about openly. Yeah, once you do know where you can get it, it's easy just to get it. Yeah.
And you say that you all attempted to take your own life. So at that point, like, I want to talk about really comedowns and how they feel. If you could describe, you know, what a comedown is like off the cocaine and the alcohol to put you in a position like that, could you describe that for me?
Give it a go. You feel empty. When the gear's gone, the alcohol soon runs out because you're chugging it to try and find base. Now, when that runs out, the overwhelming sense of irritation, you can't get comfortable. You start to go inside your thoughts a little bit more. You start to see dark. Any kind of thoughts that you have tend to end dark. For me personally, anyway. And it just spirals from that, because the irritation starts to go up, your mood starts to go down, and when it connects, it's really a perfect storm for getting those thoughts of don't really want to do this anymore. For me, I never owed people money, but do you know what I mean? I was all right for money. I paid cash for everything. It was never about the money. It was about abusing myself. That is why I did it, and I kept doing it. I would do it so much that my nose would get blocked, so I would eat it. I would eat cocaine. You know, that was what I would do, and it was just self-abuse. Now, if you loathe yourself and you put cocaine and alcohol, and then run out of cocaine and alcohol, you're left with the dregs, and really that can be quite dark. So it's different for everyone, but that's just my view on it.
Do you want to, as well, maybe, which you can all do as well, is kind of talk about that time you did try and attempt to take your life from that as well, please?
Yeah. So there's two times in particular. I was driving, drinking alcohol. I had a bottle of vodka. I was sniffing gear while I was driving. I think I'd just left a brothel or something. My son was young and at home, and I thought it's time to go now. So I basically drove at a lamppost. I unclicked the seatbelt before, smiled, and put my foot down. And I didn't die. I got done for drink driving, which I went to seek help after that. That was one time I didn't die. I was lucky. The other time was directly, I was looking up at my mum, who was dead. I was feeling my pulse, and it was getting erratic. Stopping, starting again. And I was like, any time now. I was ready to go. And really, because cocaine and alcohol were there, I can only say I was very low anyway, but those two things were present each time, I tried to end it, and I physically told myself it's time to go now.
And before these thoughts, do these like spring up like sporadically, or is it something that you're always thinking, or is it when you're using towards the end that you feel?
Yeah, it's generally when the gear runs out.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Everything's fine when there's gear. Do you know what I mean? And then the gear runs out. All right. So did I answer everything?
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
So my experience, I look back at it now, it's quite difficult to remember a lot of it because I was in a state for most of it. Loads of alcohol and loads of cocaine, probably excessive, definitely excessive. And after 2 or 3 days, I'm not even sure, I remember going home and it was probably like 3 in the morning or something on a Tuesday morning. And I remember sitting there with my thoughts and the kind of connections that my mind was making from one thing snowballed down into a darker thing, and it always ended up with kind of like a catastrophe kind of feeling. So I would think something negative about myself, and then think how that affects my family and I'm hurting people, and then maybe I try to think something positive, and I try and think, well, I'll work hard, and I'll pay them back if I'm such a shit person. And then there was feelings just kind of overtake that, and they go, well, you're not going to work hard, and you're not going to try, and people are always going to be trying to help you, and you're going to be sapping everyone's energy, and you're not worth it. Those really complete lack of self-worth, like not being worth anything at all, but still like loving people around me, still like having the worth. My mind had worth for the people that I loved in my life, but not for myself. And then I started feeling like I was hurting those people. And then for me, the thoughts of suicide came over me like a beautiful epiphany. It was kind of like, that is how I help the world. If I'm such a bad thing, if I am such a horrible thing that I'm hurting everyone around me, then that is the way that I help the world. You know, that is, and I felt so sure of myself. I felt like it really was like an epiphany. I felt so calm. And then I thought about it, and I do tend to think things through. And I thought about it, like I went, wait a minute, this is a crazy thought. Give yourself a minute. I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely the best. It felt like it was my purpose in life somehow. It felt so important to me. And but it also felt so intense that I was thinking, like, this is big. And I thought, sleep on it. If I still feel the same in the morning, then all right. I lay down and I didn't really sleep. I kind of just lay there with those thoughts. And instead of sleeping on it, I was just more planning it. I was thinking, how do I want to go? And then I was thinking about, someone's going to find me. I'm not just going to be there. Someone's going to find me. So it'd be nice if it wasn't messy. It'd be nice if it didn't hurt. And then, so a couple of weeks before that, I had my wisdom teeth taken out, and they gave me, like, for some reason, I don't know why, but 5 boxes of, like, strong comedowns. And I was thinking, oh, that's great. Paracetamol will make my organs fail, and the codeine will make it comfortable. It's a great idea. So I was kind of angry. There was definitely a part of me that was trying to save me, because I'm not violent at all, never aggressive, really quite calm, but I just battered my room, my whole bedroom, punched holes in every wall and smashed up all my cupboards, and everything was just, it was like a bomb site in my room. And I went downstairs. I completely forgot that there are other people in the world. I lived with my mum and dad at the time. My brother was in the next room. I completely forgot that other people existed. It was quite a delirious state that I was in. And and I just came downstairs, popped out all the pills and just started eating them. And then my brother appeared out of nowhere. It was like, oh my God, there is another person in the world. And yeah, I think he quite quickly knew what I was doing and found an ambulance. And yeah, it was quite grim. And then I didn't realise until afterwards, but my mum, when my brother told my mum, she got out of bed and ran barefoot to the doctors. And she was in a complete state, and asked them to phone an ambulance. And I think because the doctor phoned an ambulance, they got there really quick. I think it was like 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. And when the paramedics got there, I remember being fuming. I was so angry. I was like, how can I not be in control of this? You know, there's things in your life you can't control, but whether I live or die, surely I get to control that. I was really angry. And I suppose I'm glad I didn't. There's a definite selfish part of me that wishes that my brother wasn't there. And the selfish part of me is there because I had to see all the pain I caused on everyone around me. I had to see my mum. I had to see my dad, to see all my friends. They all treat me completely differently. I remember that specifically, like I couldn't see them anymore, you know. And hearing you guys talk as well brought up a lot of that, and you know how much worse it could have been for my mum. And that selfish part of me that goes, oh, I wish I didn't have to see that, you know, my pain, you know, how sad is that? And yes, that was quite difficult, but the support that I got afterwards, I'd say, was more traumatic than the event itself. So I went to the hospital, and they gave me a bit of paper, and they said, sign here if you think that you have to go to a medical facility. I said, what if I don't sign it? They said, we're going to take you there anyway. I went, what the fuck is the point then? There's no choice. It feels like a choice, but it's not really a choice. I said, so why would I sign this instead of not signing it? I said, if you sign it, you'll be an informal patient. You'll be allowed to leave during the day, and you'll have a curfew at night. See a doctor when you get in there, and you've only been there for about 72 hours. So I don't actually remember this until days afterwards, but I woke up in the hospital, didn't know where I was. Just over a month went by, I didn't see a doctor, I wasn't allowed out. And I was telling everyone, I was like, I'm an informal patient, and the patients were laughing. They were laughing, oh, that old chestnut informal patient, eh? Did they tell you 72 hours as well? And I was like, this is like a film, it's insane. And the things that went on in that hospital were far more traumatic than what happened to me before. And yeah, and I think that maybe me being here will help get better support for people in that situation. There you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
For me, the comedowns are very dark. Again, just similar. I didn't really sleep. You don't really sleep that well after you've taken coke. You just don't. You just kind of eyes awake, just feeling crap, and then you just get some sleep, and you wake up just feeling even worse. Yeah, it's just very dark, especially when you live in a flat by yourself, and there's just no one there. Again, the big part of this is connection. A lot of what I was searching for by doing this, I think, was just at least subconsciously just trying to connect, and not having that connection when you're coming down is even worse. Because on the rare occasion when I was with someone or speaking to someone, the feelings of suicide were nowhere near as strong, and that's not a coincidence. And it goes back to what the previous panel was saying before about just, if you are going to go out on a session, do these things, don't be alone the next day, because that's the biggest thing. Is just to not be alone with it, because the thoughts just stay there like a storm that don't go away until the next day, then it'll minimize. But then you just linger in that, and it just stays with you, it just doesn't go away. And it's just awful, and the amount of shame and guilt that I had for continuing going out and doing this stuff, getting in the same state, and just the thoughts of ending it just stayed throughout the day. And again, just like I said before, just having a knife close by, it was comforting, just knowing that if I wanted to, I could just end it, and it was just nice. And the closer I got to having the knife against my neck, the more comfortable I felt. I never actually full-on attempted to do it, but it was pressed in quite hard at times, enough where it left a mark, not to leave a cut. But I did fantasize, and just the urge was very strong to do it, Whether I was actually going to do it, I don't know, but I was at that point anyway. And there was a point where I was just on a loop in my head, just going to keep doing it again because I know it was going to kill me, whether I was going to overdose or just kill myself. Just where I was in my life, I just needed to do it again. It wasn't like every single week, all the time, but sorry, my mind's gone a little bit blank. Yeah, and there was a time when it just all became too much to the surface, and I was just bashing my head with my hand, and halfway through I was like, oh shit, like, is the knife in my hand? My mind just went blank, and I was just going like this, and I was like, oh, thank God. So part of me was relief, like, it wasn't all of me, it's just a certain part of me that was kind of taken over by the mix of coke and alcohol just after that. Because it was never that intense just with alcohol, and I never tried just coke. I just know it was, yeah, the mix of it for me. So I do feel very lucky that nothing came of that, but it was just, there's nothing worse than that. Well, there probably are worse things than that feeling, but there's nothing that I felt worse than that.
Thank you.
But yeah, and just having people to connect is so important, and feeling that you can reach out and connect as well. Because even though I know there's places to connect, it's worth noting it's difficult for people to make that step to reach out as well. So whether there's ways that could be improved to allow the individual to come out of that, yeah, to meet them, might be worth looking at as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we always think as long as they're okay on the night, if, how's the coke treating you? Are you okay? You're not going to have a heart attack, are you? Oh, thank God. Yeah, he was okay. I know he's fine. And we just think the day's done and dusted, but it's the next day that we really got to kind of double down on and worry about, isn't it? Thank you guys for sharing that. Honestly, there were some really, tough things to listen to there. So you should all be proud of yourselves that you're here now sharing these things. Definitely. What are some of the things that you look back on now and you think, oh my God, they should have, why wasn't this happening in the terms of help or services or reaching out, like he said? Is there any quick fixes, or is there any red flags there that you think need to be adjusted with the awareness of mixing cocaine and alcohol?
I mean, my background's a little bit different to, well, I can only speak for myself really, but I had intervention. I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act in the Caribbean, in Barbados.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's all right.
nice trip. So essentially, I went on holiday. I got taken off a Virgin Atlantic flight because the pilot wouldn't fly with me on it.
Yeah.
So I got sectioned there. I flew home first class after about 3 weeks when I'd come down a bit. I got sectioned in Basildon Hospital. So for me, I am going to shout out for the NHS. Do you know what I mean? They massively helped me. I've done a lot of private therapy. I've worked with psychiatrists, psychologists, counsellors, multiple hours of being the other side of the chair. And I got the help that I needed, though I think it was because of the reciprocal arrangement between governments, which got me to the front of the queue as such. I had a breakdown. I thought I was the best dancer in the world. Yeah, so I'm a pretty good dancer, but yeah. So basically, after each point of me being suicidal, I put myself in for help, i.e. drug and alcohol service on the high street. And I got that help. I've done it probably 3 different occasions, and I got something from it each time. There was one person in particular that made me take bigger steps to get better. So I did get the help that I needed. I looked for the help that I needed, I think I was just lucky that I didn't die before that.
Okay.
Cheers.
So the support that I got afterwards was obviously quite difficult, and it put me off support for a long time because I thought that's just how it works. Those are my options, and I pushed it away anyway. Support and help in general, even like my parents trying to help me through something at school or whatever, always pushed the help away. Really felt like I had to do it on my own. But after that event and the support that I got, that feeling was really strong. I was like, I have to do this on my own. And that's what kind of people sometimes say that to you. They say like, we can only help you so much, but you've got to do it. I'm like, well, I kind of saw through that and went, oh, it's just me. I've got to do it. I've got to help myself. And for the last 7 years, I've been going through some strange ups and downs of kind of going, you know, doctors might talk to you about abstinence and say, don't use anything. Even don't have caffeine in your coffee. Anything that you might be able to abuse, take it out of your house. No cigarettes, nothing. And I thought, what a horrible way to treat myself. Do you know what I mean? I can't have anything, whatever. Never again. And I just thought that's silly. I was like, that seems dispowering. Yeah. It seems like I lose all my power. I tell myself I can't be trusted. Don't go anywhere near these things because you can't be trusted. And I thought I don't really want that. I'd rather find power to dabble. I'd rather live a life of dabbling. Like I said, I'm fascinated with drugs. Absolutely fascinated. I think the idea that there's a chemical that can change your consciousness drastically, something so tiny that can just blow your mind. I think that is absolutely fascinating. I'd like to be able to still have it in my life in a safe way. And I think there's loads of people like me, and I think there's loads of people that are functional drug users. But the only time drugs get talked about is here, when it's hurt someone, when someone's died because of it. So the functional drug users feel like they can't talk about it. They might have a high-profile job, they might lose their job if their boss knows that they do coke or other drugs. And there's functional heroin users and crack users, people that you wouldn't ever know, and they're in the shadows. So I'd like to find a way to take control of what happens, and obviously if there is a risk of an extreme come down from cocaine and alcohol, you can prepare for it. If you decide that tonight I'm going to take loads of cocaine and alcohol, but tomorrow I'm going to sit with my mum, you know, I'm going to just watch Netflix and get through it, and might probably cry, probably get upset, and maybe even mention a few stupid thoughts that are going on in your head. But if you know that's what's going to happen, then you can safely enjoy a night on cocaine and alcohol if you know that you're cushioned the next day. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to echo that, if just that harm reduction of just knowing about it, it's not saying it's okay, do it. It's saying if you are going to do it more like this. Because it's not that more people will do it. The main thing is what we're all trying to get to was just less people will die from it. And surely that's the main goal of the whole thing, just less people will die. Just some people might not have that sort of approach. They might think, oh, we're advocating for the use. It's like, no, we just want less people, you know. Sorry, what's the question? Just my memories.
What support do you think? What additional support do you think people need, or what do you think we need to do to highlight more of this problem?
Well, address it more openly and have people in hospitals and more in mental health just addressing it and knowing about it. Having more funding for mental health, because I've worked in the NHS before. It's not technically underfunded. It's just terribly managed. It's wonderful we have it, but the amount of money that we could be using for mental health, we could be doing more of that. And another thing, the GPs, for example, when you go in, when I've just explained how low I've been feeling, the immediate thing is antidepressants. And the thing they don't really seem to realise is that if you are taking drugs, which if you are on antidepressants and you're young, quite likely you're going to be taking drugs. More specifically with things like MDMA, but the combination of that with antidepressants, it's not good. It's not good, and that's not talked about as well because it's illegal. You can't talk about it, especially when you're coming from the position of a GP. So that, in my opinion, should be addressed as well. Maybe stop promoting alcohol as much. It's so prevalent everywhere because alcohol is a real gateway drug. I wouldn't have tried Coke without it, and I wouldn't have tried it after that without alcohol anyway. So to go off on one, it annoys me a bit. But for me, again, what helps is connection with other people or to myself. And I found that through different modalities, like, I won't go into it, but plant medicine for me helps connect to myself, and that then helped me open up because I was always quite shut off and reserved. But the more I kind of delved into myself, the more I just kind of helped the situation, and just people finding that connection with themselves isn't as promoted as well. Yeah. It's maybe get this thing, do this, then you'll feel more secure in yourself. Rather, like, what can I do for me within? I think it's a combination of different things.
I think there's so many common themes there. I can see you guys nodding your head on so many things. It's about having that conversation, isn't it? And it's not so much of we shouldn't be taking drugs. You know, there's so much out there for harm reduction, like I said, for other stronger drugs, but we overlook this cocaine alcohol problem, don't we, massively? And I think we need to double down on that again. I'm probably going to break a rule here. I don't know if you're having a Q&A, but would you guys like to ask these anything? Is there anything you'd like to ask them?
I'm just going to say thank you.
Paul, if you want to go first, yeah.
I was burning to just say, and I forgot who said it to me just after we did our session, but I was talking about the support that was available and how disgusted I was, and there were, some big names. I don't know if it was Chris, but somebody said these organisations or institutions are living 40 years ago, and maybe we just have to turn it upside down and look at what is needed now, because the ways we've gone about it and society is different now. So I just ask the large organisations, institutions, NHS, GPs, let's look at it different, because it needs to be done different, because nothing's going to change. Okay.
It's not a question. I get emotional. It's a thank you, because I think we've sat here for many years thinking we are going lunatics. Like, did this really happen? Was it really a thing? And you've just showed us that what we believed was correct, but also emotional, I think, to listen to how maybe our boys were feeling at the time. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say a big thank you as well. Is there any final words from you guys? Is there anything that you would like to say to the people?
I guess just with cocaine, yes, we know that suicidal thoughts come, but we also know that it can act as a clamp around your heart. So sometimes you might not be planning to end it or kill yourself, but you can die suddenly. There is direct links between that and heart stopping. My friend, when I was 18, his brothers found him face down in the living room. When I was at the chapel arrest saying goodbye, I said to myself that I was never going to use cocaine. It all changed for me, but keeping on point, cocaine, yes, it does promote risky thoughts where home and safety and security is turned left, we usually turn right. And that's it for me. Thank you.
was just having a thought about the support and whether or not someone will accept it or look for it. I think often it's a bit of a cultural problem, just being British, just shut your mouth, keep your head down, get on with it. And it's not really normal to go to a support group. For like a British person, it's not normal. You have to do something strange and different and try and maybe, I don't know, accept that you need this help to then go to a support group and talk about it, you know, the typical stereotype of, hi, my name's Greg and I'm a drug user. You know, it's not comfortable. People don't want to do that. But I was thinking that if it's a cultural problem, maybe for me, if I was used to going to support groups from a young age, I'm not saying talk about drugs to 6-year-olds, but give 6-year-olds a place to talk about things, whatever. Have like weekly check-ins where you just sit in a circle. What did you do this week? What was hard this week? How can you improve that? And then you do that for years and years and years. And then when you are 18, 19, 20, you are taking drugs. What was hard this year? Well, I tried cocaine for the first time this week. And then you can talk about it. You always have the space, a safe space to talk about things. And outside of your family as well. Because it's harder to talk to the people that you know sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point to continue just from that. I think there is a disparity between the subtle acceptance of cocaine use in society and the discomfort when it comes to actually talking about it. And the more we can close that gap, like you just said, and have that space where you can talk about it, there'll be less and less problems to do that. There's nothing more to add on that, just to thank you all, I guess, for listening to our stories as well. It's brave for everyone to...
Yeah, I think that's a wrap from me as well. Maggie,
We're going to cut
go on.
lunch now because you've got 18 coffee.
Okay.
And Charlotte will on afterwards, if that's all
Sorry,
right.
Charles.
Well,
Yeah.
so if we want to go for lunch now, I believe it's ready, and there is
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. How'd you find that? Good? Really well, yeah. Well done.
The Central Club.